Did you hear that George Barkley died? Yeah, his girlfriend stopped seeing him. Welcome to the Majesty of Reason. I'm Joe Schmid, and I mean, what better way to start my philosophy channel with an ideal joke? Anyway, I've got a presentation for you, so let's get into that. Okay, so welcome again to Majesty of Reason, dedicated to critical thinking and philosophy, and more particularly critical thinking within the field of philosophy. I'm Joe Schmid, and let's get into this. So, the name Majesty of Reason comes from this beautiful quote from Baruch Spinoza. What altar of refuge can a man find when he commits treason against the majesty of reason? So, what's the mission of this channel? Well, it's a channel dedicated to the explication, analysis, and evaluation of arguments pertaining to the fundamental nature of reality. We're talking about minds, consciousness, matter, what is matter, what explains why the universe exists, did the universe begin to exist, all these fun questions in philosophy of religion, metaphysics, epistemology, is there an external world, how can we know, philosophy of science, philosophy of time, all sorts of fun stuff. So I want you to join me on a journey to cultivate intellectual virtues, a love for truth, a passionate and flaming curiosity, and a value for rigorous philosophical reasoning and evidence. And join me in discovering treasures. That's what this channel is all about. It's about serving you and discovering treasures. So I'm going to be doing a lot of series on this channel, really exciting series, and one of them is called Books. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to pick a book, and of course I'm going to read it on my own, but then I'm going to put together summaries. And for the summaries, I'm going to make a series for each book that I do, and I'm going to have one video in the series dedicated to each chapter of the book. And the summaries won't be too long. They'll only be between usually 5 to 20 minutes, usually between 7 to 15 minutes. That's the ideal. And yeah, so it's basically to help not only me consolidate my understanding of cutting-edge books in philosophy, but also to convey the insights of philosophers to you guys. So I just wanted to give you a sneak peek of the first 5 books that I'm going to be doing. So the first one is Just the Arguments, 100 of the Most Important Arguments in Western Philosophy. This book is amazing. I absolutely love it. It goes through, like it says, 100 of the most important arguments in Western philosophy. It's such an excellent book. So we're definitely going to be going through that, and I'll be expounding upon some of the arguments, building upon them, criticizing them in certain ways, so on and so forth. And then the second one is going to be Bad Arguments, 100 of the Most Important Fallacies in Western Philosophy. And this is so important for your critical thinking toolkit. The next one is going to be one of my all-time favorites, The Philosopher's Toolkit, 3rd edition. So it's actually the newest edition. It comes out in, I believe it's June 2nd, 2020. So yeah, really excited for that one, The Philosopher's Toolkit. Just so many amazing distinctions, ways for evaluating arguments, critical thinking within the context of philosophy, and so on. And then the next 2 are, now I'm going to be getting into sort of the nitty-gritty of actual philosophy. So the first one is The Greatest Possible Being by Jeff Speaks, wherein he argues against a number of the sort of Anselmian imperfect being theology attempts to deduce or infer different divine attributes from the concept of the greatest possible being or the greatest conceivable being, and so on and so forth. And then the final one is a good God logically possible? It's a new book by Sturba, and he's just investigating the problem of evil. And yeah, I know Felipe Leon reviewed it, and for each of these I'm also going to look at some reviews, and I'm going to summarize what some of the reviews said, because actual philosophers are reviewing these things. For instance, I know Josh Rasmussen, R.T. Mullins, and a bunch of others reviewed The Greatest Possible Being. And so I'll also be going through reviews of the books and presenting short videos that summarize the reviews. Another series that I'm going to be doing is on papers. So these are papers in philosophy of religion, metaphysics, epistemology, philosophy of time, philosophy of science, all these super exciting disciplines, and actual papers at the front edge of research. The next 2 series that I'm also going to be doing on this channel are Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy and Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick an entry, and I'm going to basically summarize it, maybe build upon it, put it in my own words, and just present it so you don't have to read the entire laborious article, and I'll just boil it down to the most important points and convey them to you guys. So these are really exciting things that we can look forward to. Another series I'm going to be doing is on arguments. So I'm going to give you a sneak preview of some of the things I'm going to be doing in this series. So one of them, I'm going to have a huge argument series dedicated to the Aristotelian proof, which is Fazer's first proof in his book, 5 Proofs of the Existence of God. It's going to be titled An Argument That Fails to Actualize Its Potential. The next one I'm going to be doing in this argument series is going to be So You Think You Understand Existential Inertia. So I'm going to be talking a lot about existential inertia, different arguments for and against it. And then I'm also going to be covering the 24 or so volume that was edited by Trent Doherty, and also Philippe Lyon's blog. He's compiled a bunch of different papers and blog posts of his where he has 6 or so atheological arguments. So we're going to be looking at both of those collections on this channel. I'm also going to be doing a guide to critical thinking and philosophy. As many of you know, I recently wrote a book, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be essentially going through the chapters of the book and presenting summaries of them, maybe building upon them a little bit, maybe shrinking in certain sections, and I'm just going to be presenting it here for free for an audience, and so really excited for that one. I'm going to get cool graphics and things like that, so that's something to look forward to. I'm also going to do a whole series on what is begging the question. Now, this is so important because it has so many intricacies. Begging the question depends on dialectical contexts. It depends on standards of justification and how they vary from context to context. It depends on who the interlocutors are and what the claims, the respective claims within the dialectical context are. And there's actually substantial debate in contemporary philosophy about what actually constitutes begging the question. So I'm going to be going through different papers that discuss different models of question begging, like a dialectical model, epistemic models, psychological models, and so on and so forth. Because I just think it's one of the most important areas in philosophical reasoning, and I think very few people actually sort of understand the massive intricacies and complexities behind begging the question. So this is a series that I'm super excited for. I'm also going to be doing a series on Philosophy Compass. So Philosophy Compass is an online journal, and it's essentially tantamount to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy or the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. And what they have is a bunch of papers, and the papers are on a whole host of different topics like metaphysics, epistemology, philosophy of religion, philosophy of science. So I'm going to be going through those papers and discussing them. And I'm not sure if I give you a sneak preview, but no, I don't. So I have two videos that I'm starting up in this series, and one of them is going to be non-traditional arguments for theism. I believe Chad McIntosh wrote that one, so I'm going to be making a video on that. And then the second one is going to be New Atheism and Its Critics. It's a paper written by, I believe his name is Whitley Kaufman. Yeah, Whitley Kaufman. So I'm going to be presenting the arguments in those to you guys in a sort of shortened format, and so that's something super exciting to look forward to. Also, I'm going to be doing a series on Cambridge elements. And so keep in mind that these series are going to be, extended through different, weeks and months and so on. So obviously I'm not going to bombard you with all these at once. But Cambridge Elements is basically like Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on steroids. So it basically introduces and surveys an entire debate within philosophy and presents it in a short book that's usually between like 50 to 150 pages. So usually it's pretty short, like 80 pages-ish. And so, they have one on, Natalia Dang wrote one on God and time. There are different ones on abstract objects. So I'm going to be going through this Cambridge Elements series, all the different books in there, and presenting video series on the books. The next one, a series I'm doing, I'm super excited for this one. It's Dizzying Distinctions. And so these are just going to be like short videos, usually between 1 to 4 minutes long. And I go through different distinctions one can draw in philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, so on and so forth. Things like de re and didictomodality, analytic, synthetic, a priori, a posteriori, all these different distinctions that one can draw, like doing, allowing, with respect to ethics and so on and so forth. So this one is super exciting. Looking forward to that one, giving you more tools for your philosophical toolkit. I'm also going to be doing a bunch of other videos like rants and reflections, response videos, different lectures, and I'm also going to be doing a series on worldviews. So the first one, I'll give you a sneak peek for that one. The first one's going to be on classical theism. So I'm going to be looking at different arguments for and against classical theism. I'm going to be looking at different predicaments involving divine simplicity, things like modal collapse and other arguments, and And yeah, so I'm also going to be doing interviews and discussions, and so this is super exciting. I actually have Graham Oppie. He agreed to do one with me, and what we're doing is we're going to be talking about the nature and purpose of arguments, and so that is going to be a super exciting discussion. That's hopefully going to be in May. I also have a lot of other strings that I'm pulling in the works. So one of them is, this is potential. We are waiting for Dr. Draper's confirmation, but Josh Rasmussen and Paul Draper are potentially going to be discussing the fundamentality of mind or consciousness. So whether or not the foundation of reality is mental, or at least has some certain mental aspects. And so they're going to be discussing that on my channel, so or potentially. So are you ready? I am. I think this is super exciting. Don't forget to subscribe. Turn on that little bell to get notifications. This is going to be like philosophy on steroids. This is going to be wonderful. Don't forget to subscribe to the Majesty of Reason. You can turn on that little bell to get notifications. Don't forget to like and share with your friends, because this is going to be epic.